don't call it a crisis ahead on growth, more on the projections for a big-time drop in farm income. Plus, despite incentives to go organic, many farmers stick to conventional ways. And we put the focus on youth, county fairs, and the state 4-H horse show. It's time to grow. Groundwater regulators join forces to protect our water supply. State natural resources districts hope to qualify for state money approved by Nebraska lawmakers last year. Districts can only qualify if they work together to create a basin-wide water management plan, rather than focusing on their specific area. District officials say they're trying to work proactively to preserve their water supply for agriculture, cities, business, development, and recreation. In the push for tax relief, farmers urge schools to hold the line. Nebraska Farm Bureau has made it clear property tax relief is priority number one. And while the legislature did not act to the degree Farm Bureau had hoped, the group points out these taxes are set at the local level. Farm Bureau says taxes on ag land have increased 162% in the last couple of years, compared to a 40% increase in residential real estate taxes. Many of us remember the farm crisis of the 80s, and even with projections for a 45% drop in farm income this year, experts say this time is different. NTV's Tanner Kaler has more.
It's the land that thousands of farmers and their families make a living off of and have for decades. This year, researchers predict a total farm income of $3.5 billion. That's the lowest since 2009.
It's certainly not a crisis. It's just something for producers to carefully watch.
Producers like Lance Atwater farming near Air, who says he runs his farm like a business, keeping an eye on his finances and where his money is being spent.
Being a young farmer, very little capital, it makes it harder to get started. And so you have to look at different opportunities, but even for me, I have to look at my expenses and where my dollars are going at.
Atwater says that 45% drop was something he saw coming, thanks in part to lower crop prices.
We have to recognize that this is a drop from what had been record levels.
Brad Lubin with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln says corn in particular is to blame. He says there's been rapid growth in the bioenergy sector and favorability in the global supply and demand. Those combined drove prices up, which drove incomes up. Now it's falling back.
We're coming into this sort of readjustment in the strongest financial position that we've been in as an ag sector really since the records were first being collected.
For Atwater, he says he'll continue to keep watch and see how the market shifts.
So you have to look at what's going to happen this next year and whether you marketed your grain already or if you're holding on to grain. Long term, maybe a few years ahead.
Lubin also adds that cattle prices have also driven profits up due to a low supply. But as supply increases, those profits and prices should decrease. Tanner Kaler, NTV News.
Congress moves closer to a national GMO labeling policy. The House Ag Committee has approved something called the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act. Corn and soybean growers praise the bipartisan legislation. Without it, corn growers say we could end up with a messy patchwork of state laws as Vermont and other states enact their own laws. This proposal would create a voluntary system. The bill now goes to the full House for possible action. The demand for organic products is on the rise and could mean premiums for producers, but not everyone wants to make the switch. NTV's Lauren Scharf has more.
Products are only as healthy as the soil that they're grown in.
Grain Place Foods produces 25 organic grains.
Places like Walmart and Target getting into the organic branding, and they're having their own organic brands. The demand is just skyrocketed.
Creating a boom for their business.
We can't find enough containers to ship out the product that we have sitting in our warehouse.
Another roadblock, not enough domestic farmers locally. The company has to look elsewhere.
There are many hoops that we have to jump through as a company, and they do as well. In fact, some other companies have even more stringent hoops than we do. But that's a good thing. thing because it really keeps the organic integrity.
So why don't more Nebraska farmers make the switch?
Usually the yields aren't quite what they aren't conventional, and to be certified organic takes a lot of years of converting the ground to become certified organic.
A change of lifestyle some farmers don't want to make.
But if we can get more people to see that you can grow organic with very similar, if not exact same yields as you can conventional, you just have to manage the land a little bit more.
Darren Niemeyer has been farming for more than 20 years and says his soil health is a lot better now since he stopped tilling.
I'm using less pesticides, less fertilizer, and growing better crops, and my bushels are increasing every year too.
Although the cost for organic products is much higher, Niemeyer believes there will be requests for conventional food.
There's people that can't afford to pay that premium for food, you know, so there's always going to be a demand for conventionally raised food too, just for the fact of the cost factor.
Governor Pete Ricketts asks for help for the state's edible dry bean producers. The state wants the USDA to buy 25 million pounds of Great Northern beans. The governor is requesting the help to address current negative conditions in the marketplace and an oversupply of beans. If the purchase is made, the food would go towards the food assistance programs in the U.S. Nebraska farmers will have a voice in international trade talks. State Ag Director Greg Ibaugh has been appointed to an advisory committee giving input to the U.S. Trade Representative. Ibaugh will be the voice of agriculture on the panel, giving advice to trade negotiators. International trade is a big priority for Nebraska agriculture, and Ibaugh says he's pleased to have this opportunity. Birds of a feather will not flock together at your county fair because of that avian influenza. Kids may be a little bummed about it, but they're making the best of it.
No, would you like a standard or a bantam?
You can buy boneless chicken wings, but how about a birdless chicken show?
This is the leg. Due to the avian influenza, they put a ban on the poultry shows, which, changed things a little bit at the fair.
With a wing and a prayer, poultry shows are still on, but with no live birds, after farmers in northeast Nebraska were forced to kill 5 million because of an aggressive virus.
Persevered. They came up with the idea that we could use a stuffed animal. The kids adapted real well.
Fairgoers won't hear any clucking.
It feels a little empty in here, but we figured out a way to have showmanship this year.
The showmanship is show and tell, and they did an excellent job of it.
Other counties take a different approach, with kids shooting video selfies with live birds.
We want to make sure that these kids have the education, have the knowledge, so that when they become adults, they can be able to speak for the industry, especially in the poultry.
The outbreak shows how the industry has changed. Larry Roward says many farmers used to have a small flock. Now large operators keep millions. Larry says it's good to see 4-H keep interest alive.
Poultry industry becoming so commercialized, it gives these kids an opportunity to touch a little bit back where we started from.
This bird comes from the toy aisle instead of the meat counter, but Emily Loy still earned her purple ribbon, and a chicken dinner awaits back on the family farm.
We still have our market broilers and some show chickens back home.
Avian influenza also an issue at the Nebraska State Fair. The big priority for the fair right now is their outdoor concert with country star Keith Urban. They're buying rain insurance and figuring out how to have enough food and beverage stations around to wait on 10,000 people.
We visited with the people at the Pinnacle Bank Arena. They were a tremendous help, gave us some great advice. We came back and we're now working with Fauner Park, planning to make sure that when 14,000 people show up at our doorstep, we're ready for them.
Avian influenza, of course, forced live poultry shows to be canceled, but the poultry ban also means no bird acts on the grounds, so plans for mallard duck racing have been scrapped and no birds in the petting zoo. Much more growth still to come, including a visit to the State 4-H Horse Expo.